Today, CheckPoint filled with moist, meaty chunks of news. I was debating adding extra adjectives, but I was like, no, moist and meaty is sufficient.
Yeah. My hair calmed down.
Be like,
oh, you did. It was
malted,
so much more pointy.
Yeah.
Malted, moist, meaty chunks.
Meaty, malted.
I will point out there is a tingle button there. I'll show you later.
There's a lot of please introduce the show before I take us off on our first tangent.
Hey everybody, welcome to CheckPoint, ChillPoint, the show where we talk about this week's CheckPoint episode and other video game news. If you haven't watched this week's episode of CheckPoint, it is over on our YouTube channel. You should check it out. But yeah, this is where we talk about the stories that we give you more background on the stories we talked about on CheckPoint. And also maybe go through some of the stories that didn't make it into the episode. And now, on to something completely different. Beesh.
Have you ever seen Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
No.
No. Oh, I think you'd really like it, Paul. It's a Channel 4. I think it's Channel 4 comedy. It's from the UK. It's a UK comedy show, and it's a guy who is essentially a takeoff on Stephen King, the Garth Marenghi, as an author. He writes a lot of horror stuff, and he decided that what he wanted to do is he wanted to make a TV show based on some stuff that he wrote, and it's called. And so the show within the show is called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, but the actual show is called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh, is that all those clips that you keep playing on YouTube?
And they're all. It's set in like a hospital where a bunch of weird shit happens all the time. But it stars Matt Berry and Richard Ayoade, and they're just secondary talent to the guy who plays Garth Marenghi, whose name I don't know, but he's the guy who's at like the center of the show. But there's a dude playing Garth Marenghi who's actually playing a character in the show named Douglas something or other. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I bring this all up,
okay, yes, I'd like that,
is moist and meady, because there's a line in the show. Is that
where that comes from?
No, there's a line in the show though where Matt Berry's character he's acting. You see, he's a hell of an actor, and there's a line where after somebody left and Douglas is having Rick Douglas, thank you, Dr. Rick Douglas, MD. Rick Douglas is having this kind of weird crisis, and Matt Berry's character, whose name I forget, turns to him and says, "You and he were buddies, weren't you?" Except that the way that Matt Berry says it, he has to act it, and they even do like a behind the scenes thing later where the guy who plays that character, like Matt Berry's actor character, is talking about, he's like, you can just sit there and you can talk about how like a lesser actor would have come up and just been like, "You and he were buddies, weren't you?" But he says, "But that's not acting. Acting is when you go." And I love his delivery. He's like, "You and he were buddies, weren't you?" Is how he does it. And so when I got moist and meaty is how I was trying to deliver that line so that it would, because there's something about words when English comedy actors pronounce them where they're like, I'm going to really lean on them because it makes them way funnier, and Rowan Atkinson does the same thing. Yeah, so I was trying to be like moist and meaty, and I didn't quite get there, but yeah.
There's a good chunk of Rowan Atkinson's career is just based on pronouncing words in a very humorous way.
Yeah. And not like intrinsically, like not like, oh, clearly he's doing a funny voice. It's like, no, he's just emphasizing.
Yeah.
So I was walking around my house the other day just going, "You and he were buddies, weren't you?"
That was a
yeah, because I was practicing the elocution of it.
Weird.
Yeah.
I just kind of walked away. I was like, I'm not sure what's going on here, and I'm not going to find out.
Pronouncing both D's and buddies is so good.
Well,
I've been playing, of course I've been playing Death Stranding, and as you're just like wandering through the countryside, your character often just be like, so how are you doing? Like he'll just be like talking to himself.
That's
like,
great.
This is great. Or he'll just be like, oh, this is great. Oh well, oh, nobody cared. Or just like he'll just and like you mostly are carrying this sort of this baby thing with you that allows you to see ghosts. So you could sort of think that he's talking to the baby, but there's sections where you aren't carrying that and he still does it. So he's just talking to himself. He spends a lot of time by himself, just wandering in the wilderness. So, I would probably do that too.
If you don't keep it up, you'd be surprised how weird and hard it is to talk later.
It's very, but it's very real, isn't it? Like, the more and more we dig into Death Stranding, it seems the more and more realistic this game turned out to be. If we end up having a baby where I can see ghosts, that's going to be terrifying.
Someone was saying that I was very quiet. Hopefully this is better.
You've been the same audio to us, I think, the whole time.
Well, yes, but for us, it's different than what is going out to the chat.
I'm just reassuring him that he hasn't gotten any louder in our ears. In case I don't think Paul ever worries about that. I think he knows what's going on.
Paul knows that we would tell him if we couldn't hear him. We wouldn't just pretend we couldn't and then keep talking without him. That would be rude.
Anyway, let's talk about some video game news. Why not?
Hell yeah.
Please.
That's something that we do on this channel occasionally.
Can we just skip the Discord one completely? Because it's not.
Well,
I feel like it went over. Is there really anything to actually add to that?
Yes.
Oh no.
There is. The one thing I left out of the story was, Discord's share sheet on iOS is completely broken because every time I try to share a picture, it shares it twice. And it's driving me up the goddamn wall. And it has to do with when I share only to Discords, it seems. It has nothing to do with when I share to, like, Slacks or, like, to...
How is that part of the story? That just sounds like a gripe you have.
I'm pretty sure it has to do with Discord. It has, because I don't think it has anything to do with iOS. Because Discord got an update a little while ago.
That's not what the story is.
Yeah, but it's like, these are the problems I have with Discord.
Is this just a time for us to complain about Discord in general? Like,
we need to change the name of the show to CheckPoint.
I'm giving you an option right now, Paul. You have the opportunity. I've opened that door. If you have a problem with Discord, now's the time to get you. But only one. We only get one.
Paul, if you mute both of us, it's okay. I understand.
I mean, yeah. Discord has, it is what it is. It's weird in a lot of ways and mostly fine. And it's, as with most sort of social network / communications platforms, its usefulness is more based around the fact that a lot of people use it as opposed to its actual features itself. But anyway, yeah, I mean, there is this sort of larger aspect of Apple's, Apple does do this sort of very uneven enforcement thing where they, they'll...
I think your Slack notification noises might be on, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were muted, but they decided not to be muted now.
Yeah, speaking of programs being...
Yeah.
But they decided, it's like, Apple technically has this rule about adult stuff, but of course it's a very vague rule and stuff. Cause of course, Safari can be used to access all sorts of adult pages.
Didn't put that in the story, did I?
And it's
tried.
So, so, lots of stuff that's in the App Store can be used to access anything that can be used to access the internet can be used to access adult stuff usually. And so this thing of like primarily adult things is basically up to if Apple wants to lower the boom on you for whatever reason, right? Like if Apple wants to pay attention to you or wants to do it, they have this sort of ready-made excuse. But most of the time it won't be used.
It's
But-
weird because to me, I feel like largely, the I think Apple really wants to not care about this, and I think the only reason why they do care about it is because um, they've been at the center of criticism for decades, right? And and keep in mind that's a long time, right? That they've always been like
Decades.
acting,
Kids,
trying to
it's
act
almost
like
a
the
week.
right, like the scrappy upstart, or like all those kind of. But also, it's like, oh, but they're so controlling. Oh, but all these different kind of things. And I think there's this sense within them that's like, we know that the moment that we don't try to enforce these kind of, that we don't, as opposed to not can't, because there's a lot of things where it's like it's very hard to enforce some of those things. But if you don't try to enforce some of these rules, then people will just start screaming at you that you are a problem and you are bad and all these kind of things. And I think there's like a real like
But you mean
it's hard to say this,
you get it
lack
from-
of confidence.
You get it from
But
the
they can
other
just be-
side if you do it too. If you're too heavy-handed, though, of course.
Right, and they're
Yeah.
kind of like, we're gonna not, we who can say bad things about, you know, children looking at boobies, right? Like that's, nobody can say that's a that like everybody, not nobody, everybody can say bad things about children looking at boobies, right? Like it's that kind of thing where it's like, we don't want that to happen because it's the one position we can take that we know, hey, that's not something we want kids to look at, so we're gonna put a thing on it. And then it just, as we see here, it gets more and more complicated because you can say a simple thing, but that actually ends up having very complicated circumstances.
And I mean, and we've talked about, this has been another, you know, Twitch's guidelines for what kind of content is appropriate, Steam's guidelines for what kind of content is appropriate, right? It's easy to say we don't want to allow whatever adult content, but then you either have to define adult content to a ridiculous extent, or you have to have all sorts of weird people like judging on edge cases that is, you know, by its nature going to end up being kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
Or you end up, I mean, and Twitch sort of did partial thing where they were like, you can show this amount, not this amount, if they're, you know, female presenting or male presenting, that it changes and it's like, or what the circumstances are, you know. Anyway, that's sort of a separate
I think
discussion.
on certain platforms they don't allow for sexual content, but they're supposed to allow for certain things to be shown in an educational manner,
Yeah,
right.
that kind of thing.
Or like
you
in
can show breastfeeding,
or like in an artistic manner. It's like, well, this is art, not
Yeah, and then
pornography.
you got, but you still have the what does that mean? Like the problem I have with the two problems I have with what Discord is doing outside just the realm of it is the fact that when you look at their thing and they're like, oh well, we'll determine if your whole thing is not safe for work.
yeah.
And I don't trust that at all.
Yeah.
Not because I've had any particular reason to distrust Discord in that regard, but I've never really gotten a good reason to trust, say, like when YouTube was like, oh, we're gonna go and label if your stuff is made for kids or not, and it's like, you're gonna use an algorithm though.
Yeah.
And then I have to fight this thing, and clearly,
and that's the thing where it's like,
good.
that's like the one thing worse than letting people make this decision is letting
algorithms.
Computers make this decision.
So yeah, there's that, and then there's the you'll see this happen quite a bit when something changes, especially in this manner where it's like, oh, you can't get your not safe for work content on the app. Oh, that's sad. You can just go into Safari. I challenge any of you to go log into your Discord on your phone,
Yeah,
and use it, and it is not a usable interface.
yeah. You can get in, and you can.
There are people who this is the only thing they can use,
Yeah.
regardless of if that's disabilities or that's what they can afford for a computer because they don't have access to one, or the only computer they have access is a work computer. That's That is not an answer. That is garbage.
Yeah. I mean, in Discord in particular is kind of odd because the way it's, it's all completely separate servers, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, they've got a directory kind of thing now, but even before that, so there's this weird thing where it's like, if there's an NSFW server, like, it's not like it's like, well, you just don't have to look at it. It's not even that. It's you don't even know it's there unless you are explicitly invited to it.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's kind of like, the internet as a whole. Like, the fact that there are, web pages that are not safe for work doesn't affect the other pages. But of course, it's all hosted on Discord servers, so they're sort of ostensibly responsible for the content, even though they're not really.
Right. Yeah. It's like it which is there's a lot in what you said there, which I think is interesting. And one is that unlike the internet at large, there does not appear to be a method to search within Discord for other Discords. Like you can't there's no Yahoo directory, and there's no search function to be like show me anything that has in its description this kind of thing.
I think they've actually recently made sort of a directory that you can opt into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that would be more towards community boards. Private ones probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
public boards rather.
There's public boards and private boards. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like Lure, I believe, is a public one now.
But
you have to hit certain. You have to hit certain thresholds to be able to do that. You can't just start up a thing and say I'm turning that on.
Right. Okay. But also you can't just go to Google and type in and be like nudie Discord and have like a dozen pop up. Somebody had to compile a list.
I've never tried. Yeah, I don't want to.
You will get a whole bunch of links to articles. Like I actually did a graphic in the thing.
Yeah.
If you look for like NSFW Discord, what you do get is a bunch of articles on various web pages. Here are some NSFW Discords that you might want to join. And here are like the join links. But you do have to explicitly request it.
Yeah, but that's not Discord's doing. That is somebody, third party to the process saying, well, I'm going to compile a list of really good ones. So this is, I wanted to do the story because I ultimately felt like there were a lot of people really, really a lot of people who were scared because clearly this is usually the first thing that happens before a bunch of LGBT stuff gets shut down for no good reason.
Definitely.
And I'm like, people are very worried because they're like, am I going to lose access because just the fact that I'm not straight, that I'm going to have my community shut down. I'm going to have no way to interact with people. I'm like, and that's complete bullshit, obviously.
Or for talking about stuff that might be,
because a lot of stuff like that will get shoved into not safe for work, even though there's nothing wrong with it. There's no reason that should be 18 plus content.
And that's why I did this story, because I wanted to be like, if you're using iOS, here's what this is actually going to look like. And also, let's reiterate, Apple doesn't want a sex app in the store, but they don't mind if there's an app that leads to stuff that has not safe for work content. But as far as they're concerned, they're like, you can't turn that on in the app. You're going to need to send people to your website to go do it. And then if they do it there, they can access it in the app because they had to jump through hoops to do it. And they had to jump through your hoops, not ours. And Discord's position also, we're not getting rid of not safe for work servers. We're just saying you can't access them through the iOS app because we were trying to not thread the needle that Apple's put out for us. And it's wild.
And as somebody says in the chat, Twitter obviously is a good example of something that, there's tons of NSFW content on Twitter. And I would suspect if Twitter wasn't so closely tied with Apple, Twitter is actually not only an app in the App Store, but is also integrated into the OS in certain ways, right? You can tweet from apps and stuff. I would suspect if that wasn't the case, then there would be more they would have more concerns about being like in the same way. Like, you know, I would find it hard to design a rule that would you know, get Tumblr kicked out, but not Twitter. Like,
Yeah.
but again,
Yeah.
finding hypocrisy, like finding examples of it's like, well, this is not the point, because everyone knows that it's just an arbitrary. they just make calls based on whatever they want. Like,
Yeah.
so
And Tumblr's whole the point another point where when I talked about Tumblr is that the app came back in the App Store as of December 13th, 2018, I believe is when it came back in. And on December 17th, so 4 days later, is when Tumblr actually announced we're doing the purge. So those things coincided with each other, but it wasn't as if one had to be done before the other. The app came back to the App Store, and then Tumblr 4 days later was like, by the way, we're doing this. And I'm like, unless they had told Apple 4 days prior and said, oh, don't worry, we're announcing this thing.
It's possible, but it's not. To me, it's probably like they would have just been like, well, why don't you just wait for 4 days?
Yeah. Yeah, this is largely on whatever they had done for the Tumblr app. Apple was probably like, yeah, okay, that can go back into the store. And then somebody was saying, we just need to stop having all this content because look at the problems it caused. Or maybe there was always a hard-on to try to get rid of NSFW content in the first
attention
place.
Came onto us, and people yelled at us, and we didn't like it. Yeah. And we thought people would leave. So we did a thing which ultimately just shut down a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Didn't solve our problem, but made somebody feel better, probably.
And don't ignore the fact that
somebody who didn't use our product.
Tumblr was, at that time, Tumblr was owned by Yahoo, which was owned by Oath, which was owned by Verizon. So there is a whole, it wasn't just Tumblr saying do this, there could have been an entire chain of people involved in this process.
The people who set up Tumblr and sort of established the community were long gone at that point.
Yeah. And we have no idea who said get rid of this stuff, and that's always what it kind of comes down to, is if somebody above somebody else is like, I am not a fan of sin.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't actually know, as far as I've read, that Discord was told by Apple that they had to do this. This feels preemptive,
right?
Potentially. And we did hear rumors like 2 weeks ago that Discord was potentially being bought by like Microsoft and looked at by other people, which sometimes is non-news because it's like, oh, companies were looking at acquiring other companies is about as newsworthy as video games are still making video games. But it's still, it could be a thing where maybe they did talk to people and there were people who were like, well, we're interested, but you have a lot of not safe for work content. And then they were like, whatever. And maybe that's happened. Maybe it hasn't. You really, until they say something, all you can do is speculate.
Yeah, but when you're going to sell your house, you tend to clean up all the smut.
But
you don't leave it lying around when you show it off.
Yeah.
The iOS thing, though, is kind of weirdly specific, right?
Yeah.
Anyway. Let's talk about a YouTuber's life. It's a hard life out there for a YouTuber.
All right. Well, the first problem is YouTube constantly changes things and gets rid of things that I like to use without any warning and pretends that no one uses it. And then I find out there are a whole bunch of people who would have used it if they'd known about it in the first place.
They should.
Do you think they covered that in the game?
They should do that in the game. Yeah, just have random updates that happen.
YouTube releases new feature.
It's like YouTube releases new feature. Feature gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still very, very salty about my playlist settings going away.
It's like, but it could be a thing. It's like a kind of a bet, like a push your luck mechanic. It's like YouTube releases a new feature. How much effort, how much time or whatever are you going to spend using that feature? And then but the more, but it's like every month that you use it, you might start getting more people, but every month that you use it, there's also a chance that it'll just be removed completely, and you'll have wasted all that effort.
Yeah,
it's
real
life push your luck mechanic.
I know it's very reminiscent of Google introduces this new thing and they keep it up for 3 years and it gets super popular and then they just axe it because it's not It's not hyper popular. It's just super popular.
Well,
And it's
very-
like, this is very writ small. It's like, oh look, YouTube introduced seasons.
I mean,
And then
series. It was
series.
series. But
mean,
that
it's
was
the
in
same-
beta.
it's the same company, right? You know,
Yeah.
The methodology is familiar.
As above, so below. Exactly.
Series was a thing we tried to use.
Yeah.
It was in beta.
I really
and then
liked
at
it.
the end of that, they were like, no one's using this. And they took it away. And like, your thing was still in beta and only certain people could use it. What do you mean no one was using it?
Yeah.
Did you tell anyone they had it? I didn't know we had it.
Yeah.
It just kind of popped up one day. And I think it'd been there for 3 months already. YouTube chapters. It's a thing they rolled out and just kind of showed up if certain people did their timestamps the right way.
Didn't tell people how to
but
make
didn't
it happen.
show up for everybody, and then did show up, and no one knew what it was called. It was incredibly hard to research. Thanks, YouTube. Yes, your stuff is
And-
great.
Yeah.
But of course, the most important part of this story is how much, despite our complaining about YouTube, how much we are able to insulate ourselves from the vagaries of YouTube's algorithms because of your direct support of this channel.
It's true.
But it's, I mean, yeah, like seriously, there, if we had to pay close attention to like how the algorithm was rating our videos and trying to get like, what the best, getting some sort of like the thumbnails of the like,
Oh.
the like,
Yeah.
Having a screaming guy holding a cake in front of his face and be like, you won't
So
believe what happens.
That's not even the most atrocious thing that you're supposedly have to be doing right now. The thing that you kind of that some people have started doing is multiple times over the week changing the title of their content and changing out the thumbnail so it looks like a new video. So many people end up accidentally watching it a few more times, which is an incredible extra amount of work.
yeah.
To be honest, but also it's very gross. I don't in some ways I don't mind the idea. I've seen it on some of the channels you watch where it's like the first week the video goes up, it's got a really weird clickbaity title, and then after that week has been over, they change it to something that's like, this is what's actually in the video, and I kind of don't mind that in a little bit. But I've seen there are some people who change the title of the video like once a day. And like, really?
Well, that's also a popular thing. I've had Ars Technica articles where I've opened one and been like, I'll come back and read this later, and then I come back and it refresh because I've been gone for like 3 or 4 days from reading it, and I go back and refresh it, and the headline is completely changed. And this is Ars Technica, who are a very kind of
Usually you can see the real headline in the URL.
exactly, and that's a common thing. I think that was starting to happen on news websites. Where articles were getting their headlines rewritten all the time because people are like, no, we want to say this, we want to promote this part, and then whatever kind of grabs people is what sticks.
Yeah, and when some of that stuff started happening for the first time, that was people experimenting to see if more people would click on a title before it just became kind of a practice.
Yeah.
Well, if we do this, we get other people later.
Yeah.
I remember I was just watching an interview with a YouTube creator, and she was talking about how she got her start. She was hired and flown in to like LA by another YouTuber to basically be a girl in his thumbnails. Like, not even be in his videos. It was like, I want a girl to be in, it's like, I need a girl for the thumbnail video of my videos. And it was like, that was a job, or that is a job.
Like that's still skeezy. At least he's doing that on purpose. YouTube had that time where they did this weird rollout thing where they would put in random thumbnails on people's videos to see.
They would change your thumbnail?
Yeah. You if you looked in your back end, the thumbnail wouldn't be different. It would still be whatever you put up. But they were doing like this experiment thing where they were putting in random thumbnails and people would notice and they take screenshots of it, but YouTube never said that they were doing the experiment until people pressured them into being like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
As it was only affecting so many people, which weirdly was just gaslighting a bunch of people.
Right,
and then when you got stuff on your own videos, because it would happen when I'd go look at things and I'd be like, wait, that's not the thumbnail we put on that. We don't have a person who looks like that in our group. Let me go. And I'm like, thumbnail's not wrong. I'd go back and look at it again and it'd be different. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like,
all right. Well, so to be fair, none of us have actually played this game, the actual YouTuber's Life game. I seem to recall us reporting on it, the like first one when it came out a couple of years ago, for similar reasons, that it hit a little too close to home. So I mean, they're bringing the second one out, so presumably it was enjoyable for some people. But yeah,
let's
much
game
like
it
work.
Out. Did a video on it.
Yeah.
For the first one, which really I think exposed some of the more gaming elements of like, because I think you could like edit together videos, but as long as you were doing certain things, it was just working. And of course, trying to create content or do anything in a creative capacity, there's no real formula that if you're like, oh, well, if I do this all the time, then people watch my video.
But a video game has to rely upon having formulas for stuff, especially video games like these.
Right.
So when you zoom out to the long shot, it just looks like, oh, take motion graphics, add content, add music, add motion graphics. There's a video.
In some ways, it sort of turns into one of those like really crappy like self-help, like, I can teach you to be a YouTube star.
Yeah.
All you need to do is follow these 5 easy steps. And I know that I'm showing you 4 steps, but that's because it's even easier than I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like at the end of the show, like Graham was making fun of the thing about like broadening your content and whatnot. And there have been a couple of comments on the CheckPoint episode now that have been like, oh, but it worked for such and so, and it worked for so and so. And I'm sure there's even people who look at Loading Ready Run and like, it seems to work fine for you. And it's like, well, I mean, it depends on where you put in your success. We see people with millions of views on YouTube videos that very much just focus in on one thing. So it does look like that's what happens. I personally don't believe that broadening your content necessarily alienates your audience, but that's only because I'm like, at one point, what's your scope to begin with, and what does broadening actually mean? Because I've seen YouTubers who are like, I talk about video games. Oh no, I started doing reviews. I broadened my content too much by doing reviews. I'm like, is that really?
It used to be about the playing video games, man.
Yeah.
You've lost your way.
What? Oh, I played Nintendo games mostly, but I played a couple Sony ones, and now everyone's mad. And like, what? I don't think that's broadening your content.
What are you, some kind of Sony fanboy?
So, it's just like, what does any of that really mean?
Yeah. Like we broadened what we do. We moved off of doing comedy sketches solely, and we moved into doing streaming, and then we've also like, we divided up a channel so that we also have our Magic the Gathering content under one area too. And I feel like, has that led to us being a success? Are we a success? We're doing pretty good, and it's nice.
We're not. I wouldn't call us tiny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call us huge.
No.
This is an interesting aspect of internet fame, is that you can get millions of views and not actually be self-sustaining.
Yeah. Like
or
our VOD.
Yeah, you can be as lucky as we are and not get as many views as some people, but they're better views.
Yeah.
Because they're views from you
it's
guys.
like, what kind of community do you want? Do you want everybody, or do you want people you like? I don't know. Like, our VOD content moved off because that would flood our channel.
Yes.
That would be mean to everybody.
Right.
Our Magic content moved off. I like to think more so that people who don't want to watch Magic don't have to, rather than
again,
who only want to watch Magic can.
Yeah, it's sort of, we don't want to flood things too much.
So there's that. Our Magic channel has not got more subscribers than our main channel, though.
Right.
right? Like it is like, so technically we funneled off a part of our content that has a pretty basic scope.
Yeah. And there's probably a lot of overlap between
But,
people on the main channel,
you know.
people on LearMTG, and it's like you can't just simply say, hey, this one thing happens and then you become a big hit, or this one thing, if you do this one thing, then you'll never be big.
This one weird
right? It's like
trick.
It's completely. We've had when we had a rep at YouTube, they were like, we don't understand how you guys are doing as well as you are, because you're having incredible like it was like just an incredibly high percentage of people who were subscribed to our channel were also watching our videos, and like, we don't understand how you're doing that. And it's like, you should be asking the question as to why there are people with so many subs that have nobody watching their videos. You should be asking questions about that.
Perhaps your algorithm is not designed to promote quality content.
Yeah, how about that? It sure gets clicks, though, doesn't it? Anyway.
It's something.
All right. Animal Crossing's 20th anniversary. Woo!
Ooh.
Yeah. 20
and
years, going strong.
which means that they released this honestly like really nice set of CDs and the art book and all sorts of neat stuff. Beej doesn't like it because it doesn't come, because the little case isn't in the right way, that it won't fit his stuff, but it's still good.
Yeah, it is. It's just me being shitty for no reason. Like, yeah.
And to be so, one thing about this is the for the shoulder graphics for this, we had I wanted to do a graphic of, like, it says it's sold out in Japan, and so I wanted to do a graphic of that, and so I went to the store page for it, which is of course in Japanese, and did the graphic and took a screenshot for that. But then I realized that it's like the words sold out are in Japanese, so it might not be actually clear what was happening. And so I ran it through the Google Translate, and I like that so much more because apparently the Google Translate version of the Animal Crossing title is Animal Crossing New Clothes Forest.
Oh, wow. New clothes in the forest.
Yeah.
Which I feel like Animal Crossing New Clothes Forest would be a very successful game. It's just like you like bump into trees and clothes fall out of them.
It actually kind of happens in the game.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, it's furniture, but
I've never seen clothes fall out. Yeah.
furniture just clothes for your house.
The a thing that I thought was interesting about it is that it's I believe it's a New Horizons only limited edition soundtrack. So to celebrate the 20th anniversary, they've put the entire soundtrack for New Horizons on 7 discs.
I mean, there's a lot of music
yeah.
in.
There's a lot of music,
Animal Crossing
right?
When you start piecing it all out,
There's 24 different loops of music for every because of every hour of the day. Plus, there's all the specialty music.
well, there's
various
music for if
soundtracks.
it's raining.
Yeah.
Have been previously released, right? Like various like Animal Crossing soundtracks have been previously released, but not in this sort of bundle.
I will agree with that.
Probably.
But I don't know if it's true, but I will agree with that because it's what happens is Japan always releases video game music on disc.
I've never really followed it.
3 discs of this 7-disc set are just KK Slider's songs.
I would expect that, yes.
Yeah.
Do they do all the different versions?
No.
Do they do at least the acoustic versions?
It's the instrumental versions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I had to figure that out because I pulled up the thing to read, okay, what's in actually and everything, and I was reading it and I was like, oh, this says here, Toto KK instrumental. Oh, neat. Okay, Yeah,
because K Slider sings all the songs, and in that case, he's got like the guitar, it's kind of an acoustic thing going on. But if you hear the song on the radio, it has like a bit of a radio bit to it. And then if you take the song that he gives you on the CD and you put that in a player, it has it's not the same song that he sang because technically you basically bought a recording as opposed to the live show you just heard.
Yeah.
And KK Slider sold out and got all produced with all his background music. And
it's really cool
I like
to
the pure.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, in Animal Crossing New Horizons, you're the one that sells out. You're trying to make that island so that he will show up and visit because of what a big name he is.
Oh, really?
The,
So you're like trying to
Mm.
make your island nice enough that he'll show up and play for your audience?
yeah.
Yep.
There's a
He's
name
one
for
guy.
this.
There's a lot of islands.
Yeah. But he's on every one of them on Saturday at the same time. So there's like a Santa Claus thing going on here.
Or like he just does like the hologram thing.
Yeah. The neat thing about there's a term for this. The same song, different styles. They're known as air checks,
Okay.
which I believe is actually a radio industry term.
Sounds like a pair of shoes.
Yeah, and the apparently that they have the KK Slider version that he plays on his guitar and he sings to, and the radio version that is also apparently, it's not just that it has static. It apparently in some ways it is different, that it's been tuned differently, I guess, so that it sounds right on the radio.
I mean, I meant more of that than just like then they just added some static to the song.
But I want to get that across to be like, there's actually like the song is a little different when it's on the radio as opposed to when you have the radio edit is different than the CD version.
Yeah, the radio edit, they had to take out all of the swears and stuff. It's not as good.
Oh, that would be funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be hilarious. Just certain parts where
Yeah.
So
anyway, you can buy this. So the thing is available through like store.mynintendo.com in Japan. So .co.jp probably then. The fact that it's popped up on Amazon USA, I wouldn't put much stock in that. It's probably not the real thing.
Also, when I checked it, they did not put much stock in that either, in the sense that there's no stock available of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go.
So, yeah. All right, and then the other big story that we had was talking about Quantic Dream and stuff. And this is sort of, obviously there's a ton of background info that Graham went into in this stuff. But what's sort of odd about this is because David Cage is not only the head of Quantic Dream, but also very much sort of the figurehead of Quantic Dream, a very public person. It's sort of, the fortunes of the company are tied to him very closely. But in actual fact, this story isn't really about David Cage at all, except for the fact that he runs the company and so is ultimately responsible for some of the stuff that happened. And what's so odd about this story is, there's this big lawsuit about this person that was alleges that they were wrongfully dismissed, and then and because of all this, that there was an employee who was sending around very objectionable photoshops of people, photoshopping people into porn pictures and into like pictures of Nazis and just like stuff, which is this, and it's like, it's not David Cage, obviously, is not the guy who's doing this. It's somebody else. So it's like, this seems like it should be a cut and dry, like, that guy did some real bad stuff. We're super firing him.
Yeah.
Get out of here. We apologize.
We're firing him and we're taking back our company culture because that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they seem to have almost kind of gone to bat for this guy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this wouldn't have been an issue, except they aren't really as, like, they aren't really, like, apologizing for it, except, in a sort of apologizing for it, but not in, like, it's like, well, people didn't seem to bother. People didn't mind it too much. It was fine.
We won, therefore we're innocent. It never occurred, even though it totally did.
I want to say that that's probably because that this person who's worked there for 15 years has some real serious dirt on a lot of the executives, but it's probably all photoshopped anyway.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
or maybe it's like a
goodness.
good friend or one of the, or maybe, one of the top people in the company that it's not easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
I would rather it turns out that this person is able to blackmail their way into staying than the more likely truth being that their company culture sucks and is just allowing shit like that to happen. And being all like, "Man, but we're not really.
That's-
Like, it's fine.
That's just
You didn't say anything the first time, so it's your
Yeah.
fault, really." Like,
Yeah.
that's just
that's a company
Photoshop
culture
Dave
thing.
there. He just does that. That's his thing.
Yeah.
You know, you
That's
just
what we
gotta-
hired him to do. Wait, did I say that out loud?
well, he did it outside of office hours, so it's not really our fault. Like,
Christ.
that's not on office time, so
They
it doesn't-
just
we
used
can't
internal-
control what a person does on outside of our company.
This is a big what if, but what
Yeah.
if this dude actually works for HR?
Oh God, that's even worse.
Wouldn't that be worse? Jesus.
So anyway, and then, you know, of course, this is one of those stories or one of those things where the court has ruled on this specific issue, whether this person was wrongfully dismissed or whether this person was had what it was like a hostile work environment or whatever. This one specific issue, and they ruled that it didn't hit the bar for whatever that the person didn't that it was too long after the complaints before the person actually left, so that those aren't related and stuff. There's sort of questionable rulings, but whatever.
But it's the vagaries of French law, which
Right.
are not going to be the same as Canadian law or American law or British law or whatever.
That's
But
true.
whatever the case, the specifics. But the thing is, it's one of these things where they made a very specific ruling about this specific circumstance. And now Quantic Dream is like, see, our company culture is great because we won the lawsuit. And it's like, no, all that stuff still happened. Like,
Yeah.
nobody is
That's what
arguing
really
that the
gets me.
Photoshops didn't happen.
Yeah, that's what really gets me. It's the attitude of like, see, we are absolutely great, and it never happened. Even though some people did post their own pictures that happened to them.
Like the
in
pictures are in the article.
cafeteria.
Like
Or
Yeah.
we only sent those pictures to the people who we were photoshopping. I'm like, wait, you just said that they never occurred
Yeah,
because they must not. None of this must have ever happened. But what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway. And then, of course, this all sort of compounds on the fact that I guess you could say David Cage and Quantic Dream's star has fallen quite substantially in the last little while from an actual like video game standpoint, not as well as from the larger cultural standpoint, in the sense that their games have not been what was first sort of a visionary thing, possibly, that people were like, oh, this is kind of cool and innovative. They're like, and now we're sort of like, oh, that's not actually that interesting.
Remember when we used to be able to just talk about like someone who was silly, like Peter Molyneux making promises that just weren't going to exist, and that was like harmful in completely different ways,
Yeah.
but was funny.
Yeah. Good old
I miss
Peter
talking
Molyneux.
about Peter Molyneux
Yeah.
because David Cage is such an ass.
The Cube Monster, the Cube Master.
Somewhere Peter Molyneux was like, they want to hear from me again? I have ideas about games.
No kidding.
Oh, really? You don't say.
And then, so we brought back our quick points. We went through some quick stuff here. We got Rick and Morty skins for Rainbow Six Siege. You can now the character that you could dress up as a Gromflemite
Yes.
apparently is not Sludge.
It's Sledge.
Sledge,
Whatever.
as in like
Yeah,
sledgehammer.
I knew you wouldn't care.
Don't care.
I couldn't tell who was who in the picture, and both did not look like skins to me. So
Look, the U and the E are right next to each other on my keyboard.
But I like that you got Gromflemite correct,
Yeah.
but not Sledge.
Yeah, I mean, I only say it once, which is funny because you could maybe be like, oh, maybe he just screwed up how he was saying it. But no, I literally wrote the word sludge, and it's probably because it was 3 a.m. when I was writing it, and I was reading off of a website and being like, I think that's his sludge. And I
mean,
just wrote.
it's not like Grammar I had any idea either.
No,
and
exactly.
I like-
yeah, nobody paused and said that's not that character's
I should have gotten everyone's names wrong. It would have been really funny.
There's a couple people in the comments that are like, you got his name wrong, but let's just call him Sludge now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was comment that was like, no, it's his new name now. Beach has spoken, and like, wow, You got quite a bit of power.
Just what really killed me about this is that I was like, oh, it's Rick and Morty skins for Rainbow Six Siege. That'll be, what's that going to look like? And I look at it and I'm like, where are the skins? Like, literally,
Yeah.
I looked, I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know where the skins are. What's making this so... And then it's
What's-
like, oh, well... Because I'm like, oh, there's a dude with a giant rat on his head and he's carrying a weird-looking gun. That seems plausible in a lot of these games, right? Like,
If you're not
but I
used to the
know-
game, you don't know what's normal. Yeah.
right!
I know what Pickle Rick looks like, and neither of them in the over-shoulder shot looked like Pickle Rick.
Well,
Yeah.
the rat outfit is what Pickle Rick does in order to
Oh,
like get arms
That's-
and stuff.
right.
Because he
That just seems like a weird.
ended up making an exoskeleton made out of, like, rat
I
bits.
guess they
so he
couldn't-
could walk around.
I guess
Right.
they were trying to figure out. They
forgot
couldn't
about
figure
that.
out how to make an actual Pickle Rick outfit look cool. I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, I did like take a lot of that episode out of my head because I just found it really grotesque.
But yeah, I feel like if you're making like a Rick and Morty pack, like there's so many things. For one thing, there's like Rick uses like a mech suit in a couple of episodes, like armor suit that would fit perfectly,
Yeah.
or just like a skin that's a like a lab coat and like spiky hair and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
like,
an
it's
actual
really
Rick
weird
costume.
skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's so that's why it was the funniest shit I've ever seen.
yeah. Also, it's also funny because I mean they've done all sorts of silly things, but ostensibly Rainbow, like the characters of Rainbow Six Siege are operator. They're like, you know, they're supposed to be like serious military people doing like hostage extractions and stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, stopping bombs from exploding and things. They've done silly events before, so it's not totally. But it's like, you know, if you're a hostage, having a guy come in to rescue you with like half a rat on his head is going to be a little bit disconcerting, I think. Like, I feel like
Absolutely.
that would
Yeah,
be,
I'm
it's
not
like, can
going-
I
I'm
just
not
wait?
going-
Can I wait for the next rescue
Are you
to
different?
come?
Can I stay here?
Are you also bad guys but different?
I mean, yes,
Right.
but
Are you a badder guy than the one that I'm already with? Maybe I'll take the devil I know.
Are you a bad enough dude to rescue my ass?
and then in Sea of Thieves, there's an emote that allows you to hide as a barrel. Which what's great about this is apparently this was like an emergent gameplay thing that existed already. Was
People laying
would
down.
people would use different emotes to either like lay down or, you know, make themselves smaller and like stow away on chips. Like that was the thing that people were just doing in the game for fun. And so then they added an emote where you can turn into a barrel.
That essentially just makes you invisible because you look like the exact same barrel. Of course you would. Barrels all essentially look the same, right? You don't have a barrel that's glowing red to say there's a bad guy inside here. Like,
I mean, they should do the thing like from Dark Souls or whatever, like where there's a mimic chest. If you look
yes.
closely, it's like breathing slightly.
right.
Just have like something about the barrel that's like not quite right.
The barrel is it. The person who's hiding in the barrel, it's the barrel that has the little hole in it so that they can look through it.
Oh, yeah, there's two
the bunghole's
eyes.
open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like a little straw sticking out the top.
Yeah.
Also, actually, this is a good opportunity to mention because it's saying you hide in a barrel and surprise your enemies with 4-part sea shanties.
Yes.
Which is, of course, a reference to the Longest Johns, who do wonderful Sea of Thieves singing shanties to people in the game, which is wonderfully wholesome. I've seen a couple of times where they'll be like doing that, and then like the people who are just like on the ship are just like, "You guys are great. Can we give you like gold for you to just stay on our ship and do that for us?" But I wanted to mention it because the Longest Johns, their latest crew sing thing, they did the Weatherman, and they had people from all over the world sing the different parts and do something like 6,000 people in it.
Oh, nice.
Wow, nice.
And that just came out today, and I'm in it too. I participated, not as like a special thing. I just was one of the 6. So I think you can like see me for like 1 second in like one little chunk.
That's awesome, though.
I will look basically exactly like this. That's how you will tell.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I highly recommend checking it out. It's a great song, and the editing job of taking 6,000 video entries
That is a large
and
project.
synchronizing them and putting them together.
Good
props
job.
to that.
I was looking them up because I wanted to see if I could reference them in the story, and I found out that because they've been around for like, seems like 10 years or whatever it was, I can't remember exactly, but that they just signed this year with Decca Records. So they're on a label now, like in a
Nice.
fairly
cool.
well-known label. I was like, well, that's good for them.
Awesome.
They've been kind of working at like doing these things for a long time, and just the sea shanty thing happened. And in January 2021, which is when it happened, they signed a record record deal immediately.
It's
so
good to hear
Well,
some
it's-
good stuff happening.
What's cool about it is that like the Weatherman, the version that everyone has been singing is basically their version. Like I think that's where the person who got big on TikTok, I think that's the version that he's singing, because like there's obviously all sorts of different verses and different different ways of singing it, and I'm pretty sure their version is the version that is people are singing, which is fun.
nice.
And also that video of theirs has gotten ridiculously huge numbers of views. And speaking of cool indie things, this new company called Konami.
No, I think it's Konami.
They used to they were primarily a pachinko machine manufacturer.
really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got really big making pachinko machines.
A very like
like
kind
a
of like
Silent
a
Hill
Nintendo
one, I
story,
think.
right?
Yeah,
Where it's
yeah.
like they used to do like another kind of very Japanese thing, and now they've moved into doing video games. So yeah. They're the publisher. They're not the. So Getsu Fumaden is a game that Konami made for the Famicom. So that's a thing.
Have you ever
But
played
it's I've never played it. No. It seems like your standard like side-scrolling platformer thing. It sounds like the new one, which is made by a smaller developer that Konami is publishing. So this is one of those cases like it's like, hey, we'll give you your IP and you can go ahead and make a newer version of this.
So they're still not making video games.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
Konami-
still not making video
Okay.
games. They're just publishing it.
Let's be serious. Konami doesn't want to make video games.
I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
they're listed as going to be at E3 this year, so I'm excited to see all their new pachinko machines there.
Yeah, it must be it has to be what's going to go on. So they're not the ones making it. The other company is the smaller group is the actual development team. And this looked kind of cool, and it looks a little more Metroidvania-y than just a standard side-scrolling action platformer. So, but I don't know if I'm going to play it or not. I mean, Metroidvanias, but I don't know if I'm going to play it.
No,
I know nothing
definitely
about
not.
it except that the art looks super nice.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
kind of amazing.
There were other games in that indie direct I'd rather play.
Yeah.
Getsu Fumaden does not look like a game I want to play.
The art seems a little intense, and
I mean, I'm sure it's a fine game. I'm sure there are people who will really enjoy it. I know
Yeah.
there were many people who were very excited
If-
for that in places I've been reading, but
I mean, if you are big on Twitch on Switch games, the Indie World presentation is like 20 minutes long and jammed packed. They really they were just here's a bunch of
really
cool
had
stuff.
to move
Yeah.
along.
yeah, the Indie World presentations typically have a few things in it that I find.
And that means that there's also a sale on right now for a lot of indie stuff. So if you go to the eShop, you're going to see a lot. Or you can go to Deku Deals.
Yeah, I like going to Deku Deals.
Heather turned me onto this site,
Hashtag
Deku
not
Deals.
sponsored.
Yeah, not sponsored.
But
None
you
of this is
want to
sponsored.
sponsor us.
Deku Deals is having a bit of a hard time at the moment, I think.
There's
Just
a little note at the top of the website that says the website is running a little slowly right now. I'll fix it. Michael.
yeah, he's doing it. It's one guy who runs it, but it's if you want to know, if you want to be able to track what games have sold for over their lifetime, he compiles all this information and puts it there, and you can make your own wish lists and stuff. And I've started using it. I got a thing the other day telling me that Starlink Battle for Atlas, the starter pack, which is the Nintendo Switch version of Starlink that comes with the R-Wing, is currently on sale for $13 at Best Buy. So when we're done here, I'm going to go buy myself a copy of Starlink instead of paying $100, I'm going to pay $14 for it. So
Yeah, the reason why Deku Deals is so great is that you can see it in the currency of the region that you're in. So you can see it in Canadian prices, and because there's a lot of stuff that is states based only.
Right.
When I
You're
find
like-
websites like that,
Like, wow, that's such a good deal. That's like 20% cheaper than it usually. Oh.
yeah. But you can also make you can categorize your wish list so that you're like, I'm interested in this game, but I want it to be. But I want to get notified about it when the price drops to here.
yeah, to a certain amount. Or I only want to know about the physical version of a thing instead of the digital version of a thing.
Yeah, if you don't
Or-
want to do digitals.
Or you do the thing that I always do with Steam, which is I put a bunch of games in my Steam. I'm like, oh man, this game looks really neat. I'm going to put it on my Steam wish list. And it's like $60. I'm like, well, I don't know if I want it for $60. But I'll put it on my Steam wish list. And then Steam will be like, hey, it's on sale for $30. And I'll be like, wow, that's 50% off. I don't know. And then Steve will be like, hey, it's on sale for $20. So I'm like, I
Come
don't
on.
know.
Come on, a little more.
There's a point where on my wish list where if a game has gone on sale enough times, but I haven't been like, I do want to get that, but I'm getting something else right now first. So I'll wait until next time. But if I'm constantly, that's not good enough, I start to remove them because I feel like
Probably a good
I don't
idea.
think there's
Yeah.
ever going to be a point where it's actually good enough.
Yeah.
Actually, the worst part is when it's like, hey, it's available for $20. You're like, and then the sale goes away, and you're like, oh man, I should have gotten that.
Yeah.
Damn. and then it comes on sale for $30, and you're like, but it was $20 before. Now I don't want to get it.
again. Right? They'll lower it to 20 again, right? Right? Huh?
Also, my backlog has 500 games in it. Do I really want to buy another game right now?
Were there any other games in the indie thing that you thought, like, because I know we reported on this one because it's funny, but was there anything else in there that you were like, oh yeah, that seems neat?
Yes. I don't remember what it was. I'd have to look it up. I want to, before we move into that, if we're going to talk about that for any reason, the one thing I do want to mention is that Deku Deals is also supported by Patreon. So you can support us at Patreon, and we love that. And thank you. You guys have been very supportive for our Patreon, too. And if you are into supporting people on Patreon, Michael's Deku Deals is also something that, and he doesn't make a ton of money off it, so it is clearly a side hustle for him. So
that's an interesting aspect, because you can, unlike say entertainment, with something like that, you can very easily quantify exactly how much money it has saved you, and then be like, well, it makes sense to put some of that money back into the thing. It's just an investment, really. It's not even like supporting.
Exactly. You've just been like, okay, well, I'm going to take 20% of whatever I saved, and I'm just going to put it into this Patreon. No, there was something in the indie. There was a couple things in the indie world.
What did they look like? Do you know what they were about?
No. That's the thing is, I just watched them like, oh, I like that. It was like, freaking, because all I can remember is Fez. Like, I don't even want to play Fez.
This is really funny because that's in the montage,
right? It's like, oh, Fez was in the weaving spirits thing where it's like
they mentioned that one at an earlier direct. I swear, and it looks really neat. But I know what one you're talking about, where you're kind of flying like a bird and you weave in between.
Yeah.
What looks like kind of a fabric or something. I'm not really sure what it's about.
I mean, Fez is a neat game. It's been out for a long time now, but
one day, if it keeps coming out on things, I might get around to playing it. I like the pixel art of it. It looks very cute.
And the like
the
flipping
3D-ish flipping.
The flipping 2D thing is a super neat mechanic.
Okay. So, There Is No Game, Wrong Dimension. I was actually thinking of buying There Is No Game for my phone. I might end up getting it on Switch instead. I don't know. You can get There Is No Game, the Game Jam edition for your phone.
Skycast in chat was literally just talking about that.
Yeah, it's really cool. The Game Jam version is just really cool, and it's a great way to see how the larger game is going to work. But I was like, that's cool. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
Oh yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people.
Like,
I spent many fond hours playing Turtles in Time on the ferry from Victoria to Vancouver. There was a Turtles in Time. There was a Turtles in Time on the big ferries from Victoria to Vancouver. Take about an hour and a half, and there used to be a big arcade stand up of Turtles in Time.
Is it the 4-player version?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And Hindsight seemed interesting, but I don't know if I'll play it. Road 96 looks super interesting.
Road 96 seems really neat because it's it looks like you can take like a lot of different paths.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of splitting trees of where you could go. Like you could be on a completely different road. You could be doing a completely different thing. You meet different people. So I am curious about that one. I think that one's being published by Annapurna.
Yeah, it's a procedural. It's a procedural narrative game, and it seems like a whole bunch of different stuff happens. But depending on the choices you make, you might end up going in completely different directions. And they say there's like 148,000 different ways to play the game, just because of how the narrative branches.
I mean, those kind of the things like that are a little bit like, because that's just like the factorial thing. That's not really that impressive, but still.
Yeah. The Longing was a really interesting idea.
Longing is a game that you could get on Steam, which was helpful because I looked up some reviews about it, and it's a game that in real time ends in 400 days, which sounds like a lot.
Once you start it, 400 days later.
Yeah, so you could just start the game and then turn it off and then take it back 400 days later. Apparently, at least in the Steam version, so people are speculating the Switch version probably has this. If you mess with your system clock,
it knows.
It knows. Mm-hmm. But the punishments are not like fun punishments, so people don't recommend it.
So it's like a year it's like a year and a bit that you have to wait a year and 50 days.
We call those punishments.
There's things you can do in the game that make time run a little faster. So it doesn't have to be exactly 400 days. And it's just kind of this very slow-paced walking around, finding things to do. There's certain areas you can't go into. You have to wait like 2 weeks for the environment to basically change because something very slow is happening, and then you can go that way. And it seems really neat. Like, the people who really like the game really like this game. And it definitely feels like if you're not into a slow explore thing, you probably shouldn't play this, but
it'd be kind of fun to
dig that idea, you might.
It'd be kind of fun to be something that you just like pick up every, couple weeks to like see what changed.
Yeah, just to check in and walk around. Like, I kind of feel like it's the kind of game that, like, Talking Sim could play, once a month.
Yeah.
Because also the thing that happens at the end, 400 days later, it's not one of those things where if you forgot to pick up the game exactly at 400 days later, you can't see it. It's apparently you have to activate it.
Oh, okay.
So you're not going to, like, miss out. And it seems really neat. Although it is really funny to watch. In the indie presentation, they had the dev talk about the game. He's German, yes. I believe, and he's just kind of like the thing looking off to the camera. Yes, very excited to make this game.
It was interesting too because he was looking off the camera in one direction, and then he kind of started to look towards the camera, but he looked off in like another direction, and I was like, I don't know what you're.
I'm not sure if he.
It's interesting.
Yeah, like. Part of that could just be not being used to talking in front of a camera, but it just kind of had this like artsy.
It's kind of charming in its own way.
I like.
I'm gleeful as a child.
And then Chris Tales, which is
I've had that on pre-order for months.
It looks amazing. I will probably not play it because it does also look very JRPG.
There is a demo.
Well, maybe I will play a bit of it.
And I played it at PAX. And I felt so bad when I found it at PAX because that corner of the show floor where the customizable controllers are and like that big stage are, and like they don't, like nobody seems to be over there. They were over in that dark corner, and I was just like, does anybody walk past here once they like if you're not into I've always looked down this aisle and been like, whatever, and like walked away. But yeah, no, it looks really pretty.
Yeah, there's
and
a
I've
lot
been
of
excited for that game for ages.
like Skull the Hero Slayer looks like a really interesting Metroidvania beat 'em up kind of thing. So I'm like, that's kind of cool. But
It's the one where you change heads.
yeah, and there's
Yeah.
like over 90 heads you can put on your body. It's like, and they all give you different abilities. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I don't know if I'm going to play that or not. Kiwi.
Kiwi looks adorable. You're a tiny Kiwi. It's a multiplayer game, I think. And you're running a post office, but because you have no arms in your tiny Kiwi body, you all have to work real hard together. And there's outfits.
Yeah.
You dress up your cute Kiwi.
So there was a lot of stuff. Go watch the Indie World if you want to see about the stuff that's coming out to the Switch, but also stuff that probably exists already on other platforms, and that maybe that will be a great way to let you know about those kind of things too, right?
We need to get you and Kathleen to play it. Kathleen can provide special New Zealand commentary on.
Yeah. It's like, okay, in this, Kiwis don't actually know what Arabic letters are, so they can't actually process the mail in this way. Anyway, moving on.
Fortnite. Got it. It's in the quick points, but we had to get some kind of Fortnite thing in, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, the Minecraft thing actually I mentioned first too.
Yeah,
but that's just they're splitting the update.
They're splitting the update, and of course, you have the, not that it's a bad thing, but of course, basically every company has the get out of jail free card now if they're delaying an update by going, well, we don't want to overwork our employees and things, which is great, but also they can point at CDPR and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So the people are very on board with the, like, we're gonna phase this thing out. I was mostly amused by this because it's called Cliffs and Cave, or Caves and Cliffs, and they're splitting it in half. But unfortunately they're not splitting it in caves in one thing and cliffs in the other.
No. There's been a few comments in the CheckPoint episode explaining the splits, which is great. Like, if Minecraft's your thing, you are definitely gonna want to know what parts are coming out when, and that probably affects you. But from a comedic standpoint, if they had literally been like, okay, Caves and Cliffs is a little delayed and we're splitting in two parts, so Caves is part 1 and Cliffs is part 2, that would have been great.
Yeah,
I think they should have done
I
that.
hope that's what they end up doing, but anyway.
Mechanically, the problem is it's like the cliffs and the caves are like the maps changes, and then there's a bunch of other changes that they're doing, and so they're separate. Although, I mean, from what I understand, this update is going to blow the chunk punching metagame completely out of the water. Like, it's...
Oh, I see.
Because it's completely changing how caves and underground stuff is generated. Also, it's making it way, way, way deeper. So, I don't know how well this is going to actually work. But it's going to totally change the world of chunk punching forever.
Well, I mean, James is going to have to fall a lot farther to die on Mine O'Clock. But I'm sure they'll explore these changes as well if you're not really into Minecraft, but you want to see James fall off of longer cliffs.
Yeah.
And want to take longer to die, right?
Yeah. He has enough time in the air to really think about his mistake. So, Fortnite. Yes. You can there's new tires for your cars. You can just, like, pick up these tires and add them to any car in the game, and it makes it like a jacked up monster truck, which is cool. It's cool. It gives the truck, like, super good handling and a bunch of other upgrades. It also makes it able to drive up anything.
Wow, that's really good for a racing game to include a thing like that.
Yeah, except Fortnite isn't a racing game.
Yeah, weird that.
I mean, it's every game as far as I know now.
You can go up a sheer, just speaking of cliffs.
you know, like you can do in real life. Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing.
Have I been missing out on driving in my most optimal way? I need different tires on
spider
a car.
tires. You need spider tires.
Spider tires. Is this real?
No.
Well, this is why I don't drive.
Yeah. Made of 100% ground up spider.
Anyway. And then you can also now get eyeglasses in World of Warcraft, which for some reason hasn't been around until they haven't been. I think you could get sunglasses before.
Yes, and goggles and stuff.
and goggles, but not like
So
glasses.
some kind of eyewear, but not
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
glasses kind.
So
And
then
so
you can
people are
be
very
that-
excited about that.
You
There's
can be
some
the icy Bishonen from like a Wizards anime or something.
there's some joke here about how like WoW has been out for so long that the people playing it now need to wear like bifocals.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it you know it's funny these things where because they found this out from data mining the updates and stuff, right? So, but it's funny these updates, right? Well, they're like, oh, this new content, and we're doing glasses and stuff. People are like, I don't care about the content, glasses,
Yeah, I mean,
tiny cosmetic change, yay!
cosmetic changes can be really important, especially if you haven't had them before. Because maybe you do want to make your wizard look slightly smarter, or maybe you have glasses in real life and you'd really like to showcase that off.
I like
I don't
you
know.
can go against type. You can be like, I'm going to
Paul?
be a orc barbarian that wears glasses.
Yes. I always
Paul,
love that
do you
stuff.
do you like putting glasses on your characters in video games when given the option? On a personal note, I know that's
Not-
not going to be like a sample size that proves everybody, but
Not usually. Like, I don't usually put glasses. I mean, I don't usually think about it that much, I gotta say. But I don't think I usually put glasses, unless I'm trying to make the character, like, specifically look like me. Usually I don't try to make the character specifically look like me.
that's fair.
But I will say that Sam Bridges in my playthrough of Death Stranding, one of the people who you meet is a cosplayer. That's her profession in this post-apocalyptic world.
All right.
Not a lot of like conventions to go to, I would imagine, but anyway, especially since nobody ever sees each other. But it's but when
it for
you
the
get her
online
onto
club.
your side, she gives you a hood that's like an otter head. It's like an otter head with like little ears and stuff. And when you wear that, you can also swim better.
That's a hell of a cosplay.
Yeah.
I was really happy with Graham's delivery of the World of Warcraft eyeglasses story, because it was like, I want to capture kind of that late night monologuing to nobody energy that's really kind of out there right now, where it's like you're talking to like your staff who are off camera and they're like telling you things and the audience can't
Yeah.
hear them, but it's like, I'm also a nerd? Oh, okay. Yeah.
What I like about that is that, you know, it's one of those ones where like we've established it's, you know, Graham's talking off camera. You're clearly there.
Yes.
And we've also, you know, we often do bits where I talk to, so he's talking to somebody who isn't you and isn't me.
Right. Who isn't mic'd.
And isn't mic'd.
I like to think it's Bartleby, who's just sitting there staring at him, being like, "No, you're a nerd.
Oh, right.
Come on, man, you're a nerd."
Yes. Also, the cosplayer's husband or boyfriend is Conan O'Brien. Like
This game sounds astounding.
like it's actually
Oh, right.
he did the performance and it's his likeness scanned into the game.
Right, I completely
For
keep
no
forgetting
reason.
that Death Stranding has a whole bunch of celebrity people in it, where because people were making fun of the fact that Kojima kept bringing in all of his friends to this video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a shower with Guillermo del Toro 2 sessions ago.
You can really tell us The Shape of Water.
Yeah.
Also, he did a funny voice when he said video games, and a lot of people have liked that. So,
That's good.
given how that
Justified.
is, that means everyone should be doing CheckPoint in funny voices from now on.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that in the script it says, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right." Ha, brackets funny voice video games. Funny voice is called out specifically in the script.
A bit of behind the scenes whatever is that like I said, it was like 3 a.m. and I was giving up on my Discord story. I'm like, there's no way in hell we're gonna run that Discord story. Screw it. I'm just gonna write quick points because Graham said maybe we'll do quick points. So I started writing, and I was the one who scripted all the quick points, but I didn't know which ones I was gonna read. So in the morning when Graham got up, he's like, okay, so I've just went back and forth, and so he ended up with the one where it's all weird, and I'm like, I wrote that for my voice, so can you act it out so I know that you have the same idea I do? And he acted out. I'm like, oh, good, you do. You do have the same idea I do.
So the trick is, Beej wrote a bunch of these stories late at
The little ones.
late at, or but and also like obviously we write all the stories the night and morning before. And so Beej wrote a bunch of the stories late on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and then went to sleep. And then I got up and started working on the graphics on Thursday morning. And Beej didn't wake up until later on Thursday, before we had to shoot. I didn't know that he decided not to do the Discord story. Maybe if you're deciding not to do the story, maybe you put some sort of mark on the story so that I don't do a bunch of graphics for it.
I didn't copy it. I didn't copy it into the stories section, so I was kind of like, I'm not going to put it up there. I'm going to ask Graham and Paul to read it and decide whether it's worth using. So when I woke up and saw in Slack that they're like, Paul's like, so whose story is this? And Graham's like, I didn't write it, so it must have been Beej. It's like, okay, am I supposed to do graphics? You know what? I'm just going to do graphics for it. And I'm like, well, they must have read it, and they must have thought it was okay, so I guess I'm doing it, so that's great.
I'm going to point out that in your Google Doc, you can write notes, in which you do actually a lot, in order to do graphics. So maybe, to avoid confusion and making people not think that maybe you forgot to just move it up, you could... Especially if you're going to leave it at night, maybe you could put a note that's just like,
please read this.
Please read this and tell me if we should use it. I'm not sure. And then you could go to sleep.
Yeah.
And by the time you wake up, it's too late for me to do... If I hadn't done the graphics, it would...
Exactly.
Anyway, it turned out great because we got graphics for it and we got to do that story.
Yeah, so that's a fun behind the scenes
thing. And the coming up.
Coming up was just the trolling people about the new Switch color.
Yeah,
which is blue.
So that was great for me because so there's a lot of talk about the Nintendo Switch Pro thing and how that's got to be coming. For the last at least 2 years, it's always been like they have to do a Pro. It's time. The rumors have said this, so it's probably happening.
Every week, it becomes more imminent that it's going to come out.
Yeah, I literally see people say things like, well, more people are talking about it every week, so it must be happening. And I'm like,
it could
you
guys.
There's even the Switch color coming out doesn't disprove that they're working on a Switch Pro or that we won't get one eventually. Yeah. But like the Switch Lite originally had a lot of rumors, and then they brought that out, and I'm like, so in the morning when they were like, new Switch Lite color, I was like, well, I guess the Pro's dead now for 2 hours, or at least until May when this one comes out.
Because, of course, when a new, even before the color comes out, the SKU goes into the system, and so people are like, new Switch SKU.
Yeah, that often does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, okay, if one comes out, they'll tell you when they're ready.
It's funny, because this is how conspiracy theorists talk. When it's like, well, clearly it's on its way. Clearly it's coming. Everyone's talking about it. More and more people are talking about it, so it must be true.
I've been following people talking about Nintendo leaks specifically for a year and a half now.
It feels like years.
That's just because I keep talking about it to you. And it's amazing. And there are some people in there who are very grounded. Who are very like, no, we're speculating. We think this would be cool, or and I've actually found some really good stuff based on that. But there are people who are just way out there, and then there are definitely people who are trying to troll people, and
yeah,
I mean,
you can't tell the trolls apart from the people who are just overly excited sometimes.
Of course, we got a little bit of that kind of effect last Friday with the PPR and
for Christ's
people
sake.
Working themselves up into excitement about something that they think is going to be happening, but they're not. But they're incorrect. But somehow have decided that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that happens a lot with leaking.
And so then they get mad that they've been now deprived of the thing that they were never promised in the first place.
Yeah, anything I've seen in a Nintendo leak respect, if it's a person who's like, I know the entire show and I'm going to tell you every single game about it. Even if they were right I don't want to know. I think you're just ruining someone's hard work at that point.
Yeah.
But I have found with some people who often like to say, okay, no, there's absolute, like, I've heard some stuff. There's an event. They're going to drop a thing soon in the next coming week. And that I don't mind so much because I'm like, okay, that's cool. I like kind of knowing and anticipating things. Also, I'm not going to think too hard about it because they could end up being wrong because plans change. That's part of the reason they don't typically announce stuff super early. Sometimes things change.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of rumors, there's a great article, or there's a great post. Reggie, good old Reggie Fils-Ami,
Yeah.
did a great post about. Well, it was 29 years ago, on April 13th, was Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Long time, and so he posted about that. He's like, "This is great." And he posted about that, and somebody was like, "Hey, the 50th anniversary of Mother 3 is coming out, Reggie. Huh? Reggie? Maybe you could do that?" One, of course, Reggie doesn't work for Nintendo anymore.
Yeah.
And two, when he left Nintendo, he specifically was like, that was one of the things he sort of mentioned was like, I'm happy not to have to answer questions about Mother 3 anymore.
Yeah. Yesterday, Twitch tweeted, what's the oldest game in your backlog that you haven't played yet? And Reggie responded with Mother 3.
Yeah. He said, Mother 3 English edition. I really need to sit down and play that, but every time somebody brings it up, I keep putting it back in my shelf.
Yeah, and there are people who saw that and are like, oh, he's emulating, or they secretly have a version, or whatever. To like, this is such a troll post.
He's like, I don't work for Nintendo anymore. I have no reason to not troll people.
Yeah,
like I have no PR stake in this anymore.
Yeah, like his Twitter like recently has been like, oh, I'm on podcast or I'm doing whatever, and it's kind of fun. But when he first started Twitter after either leaving Nintendo or he was just packing up, you got to see cool pictures of like his workspace and his desk and things that was on it.
And
it's kind of a nice Twitter.
If I worked for Nintendo, and in like, let's say another 5 years time or whatever, finally I decide I'm going to make an English translation of Mother 3 and put it out on the Switch as a thing or whatever, right? I would absolutely stealth it to hire Reggie to show off Mother 3 English edition on his Twitter or something, or have him put up a video or something where he's like, hey, check it out. I got my copy of Mother 3 English edition. He starts playing it and whatever. And then at the end, putting up to being like, it's available on the Switch right now, and have the Nintendo logo go up as well. And people be like, was that real? I don't know if that was real or not. Oh my god, it's real!
Have it go up on April 1st. Just completely mess with people.
That is absolutely what I would do if I worked for Nintendo and we were planning that. Is I would hire him to do it and stealth it so hard.
Maybe that's why you wouldn't get hired by Nintendo.
It's true.
For the PR team. Actually, in other Nintendo news, now, this might not seem that big a deal, but trust me, it is. The time for the Super Mario Brothers speedrun has gone down by 0.05 of a second.
Yeah.
So 50 milliseconds. But that's important because it puts it under 4 minutes and 55 seconds. It is now 4 minutes, 54 seconds, and 54.948 seconds.
Yeah.
And it is generally thought that it will never. It might get. It's theoretically possible.
There's only a couple more places they could pick up any time.
Theoretically possible to get lower than this, but I believe even TAS runs, like tool-assisted runs, where the computer plays it absolutely perfectly, are not lower than 453.
Yeah.
So what's amazing. I think I've talked about Super Mario Brothers speedruns a little bit. Like Super Mario Brothers speedruns is in the world of speedrunning, which is already so ridiculously competitive, the original Super Mario Brothers is so like precisely like everything about the game has been optimized to such a ridiculous extent. Like the tool assisted runs are only very slightly faster than actually what people can do. It's
Yeah.
just totally bonkers.
And this is also on emulated versions, because the idea is like nobody's actually yet to do a run like this on actual hardware.
Yes, this is emulated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably because I guess actual hardware, just it's harder to capture it and harder to do all this stuff. Maybe even actual, who knows? Maybe even actual hardware, like because there's stuff that there's one of the things that tool assisted runs do. They talk about is, of course the Nintendo D-pad. You can't push left and right at the same time because it's a tippy pad, right?
Yeah.
And so there are some moves that you have to do in order to like totally glitch it out and run through walls or do whatever. Sometimes you have to like push the left and right inputs on like the same frame. And it's like humans can't do this, not because they're not fast enough, but because physically you cannot do that on a controller.
Yeah.
Unless
Right. The hardware doesn't allow.
you have a messed up controller, which people have done. There's the little nub on the bottom of the X of the controller can get worn away so much that you can do some of these things.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
it
then
isn't quite the
people
same
are
as
like,
modified hardware then.
yeah, and so there's been like debate about whether that's considered a modified controller or not.
Right, as opposed to just natural wear and tear.
Yeah. It's wild. And I think they said that the differences you're going to see is like it's every 35 milliseconds or something. It's like whenever you see a time difference,
Right?
Because we're down to frame length, and it's like 35 milliseconds or something like that. Is like this is the length of what a frame would be up for. So if you happen to get there a frame early, then you're going to see this exact amount difference.
And my favorite thing is how they test Super Mario Brothers. Is there's a clock that starts? There's an invisible clock that runs starts from the beginning of the game that is used as the seed for a bunch of random things in the game, a bunch of pseudo random things, and so they know based on where Hammer Brothers hammers are, where Bowser's flames are, what frame of the game you are on at any given point. Like when you are fighting Bowser on World 8, every frame of his flame is known. It's deterministic when they're at the point where that's like deterministic. So they know, and so like people have been caught being like, oh, you somebody cheated because the flame is on the wrong frame for this time point. So you clearly are, this is an edited thing. It's amazing.
Oh shit! Wow, you can verify. That is amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think because because of the quick points, we actually did almost all of the stories that I marked as stories.
I know, right?
Although there is here, I'll post the tweet here. There is now available Dark Souls rubber duckies.
Yeah, they're so cute.
Have the most hardcore bath time.
I really like that there's one that clearly the helmet has been shaped to allow for a beak, and then the other one has not.
Right, so inside that helmet, the beak is like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Praise the... Yeah. I kind of wish that they would make like rubber ducky versions of some of the like terrifying bosses,
like Ornstein and Smough, or like the
or like the like big huge like tree
spider.
or the or the big wolf with the sword.
Oh yeah.
Just like a rubber ducky with like a giant sword in its mouth would actually be pretty awesome.
And like wolf ears.
Yeah, I put that in the CheckPoint Slack when I saw it, because I was like, well, maybe maybe it'd be a good coming up, like
Yeah.
Rubber Ducky's Dark Souls or whatever, right? Because it's not really a story, but it's cute and funny, and sometimes we do those.
GZ56 mentioned that it's surprised that they didn't see the Time Splitter story show up. There's I forget the name of the game, but it's made by the people who made Time Splitters 2. And what they did is they put an arcade game in the game, in the game that they've made, and I don't care what the game is really. Okay, Homefront: The Revolution. They put an arcade game of Time Splitters 2 in Homefront. And
nice.
if you go play it, you can play like the first 2 levels or whatever of Time Splitters 2.
Okay.
But there are codes that the programmer put in. So if you input the codes on the Time Splitters 2 arcade game screen, you can unlock extra modes in the arcade game.
Okay.
Because the entire release of Time Splitters 2 is an upgraded 4K version of it is in Homefront: The Revolution. You can play the entire game
Just secretly,
and once you've done stuff to unlock it, or once you've done stuff to play the game, it adds Time Splitters 2 to the Homefront game menu. It's just something you can select to do to take you right to the game because you've discovered it and you're able to play a bit of it. So it's like, you just want to play a little of that, you can. Well, if you do all these codes, and what's great is the dude put the codes in the game and didn't tell anybody that they were there.
This is something people found out.
No.
but
Nobody found out because he gave the codes to his buddy to say, hey, I want you to leak this onto a Discord that you know so that people will do this thing. His buddy leaked the codes. Nobody believed him. Nobody tried them out.
Nobody tried it out.
So he's gone years with nobody ever doing this. And finally he was like, I just have to tell people, I guess. And so he released all the codes. And now people are like documenting, he didn't give us all the codes. There's actually more codes in the game that we didn't know about.
so, but I have questions.
Yeah.
Like the people who were making the game didn't notice that the entirety of Time Splitters was in, like, this is we've talked about we talk about sometimes when it's like this new game is coming out, it will be 100 gigabytes. Isn't that a stupid amount of space? Homefront is probably like a 20 gigabyte game.
Yeah.
But you have to, when you download, like, I would be kind of pissed off if if I spent if the game is actually like you have to download like a 40 gigabyte game when the actual game is only 20 because friggin' Time Splitters 2 is just all the assets are in there, but you can't play it.
You have no idea that but I mean, these days games showing up as being gigabytes is like everyone just accepts it and they're like, I guess this is what this is. But
I think it's even funnier that he tried to get a buddy to leak the codes
and then
so that people would know about it, and all he probably had to do was be like, oh yeah, there's extra codes in there. They're about this long. And I'm sure people would have like been like, we can find things. We like
but
finding
it's like,
things.
Yeah.
But the idea of like the entirety of a game like Time Splitters 2 being like being in it is just like nobody would think that. Like, why would you think to look for that? That's so ridiculous. Right? That's, I mean, this
is the hint of, well, the arcade game is here and you can play the first 2 levels of it and that's fun, but why would you think that the rest of the game is in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that just seems like a fun add-in.
Yeah.
The issue,
a game.
The issue that I can see, I haven't played Homefront, but I have played some of Time Splitters, and it's a super fun game. Like, my concern is that it might make Homefront look bad. Like, Time Splitters is a super neat game. You like play as all sorts of different people and you like jump through time and stuff. I think it was originally made by the people who did like Perfect Dark and
okay.
And the original like Rare team that did GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and then Time Splitters. Anyway, that is so weird that they would not only like having like a real game on an arcade thing is like an Easter egg already, but then having it actually be the whole game. is
And yeah, there's
ridiculous.
the point in also I forgot about that. The in the story too that GZ points out is that the account that those codes got posted got banned, so he didn't have access to the codes anymore. Like he had to go hunting to find out what were these codes again, because I know I gave them to somebody. So he had to go looking for them wherever to try to find where the hell are these things so I can share them again. So
I do
it
love
might
when,
have been
yeah.
it might have been lost forever, right? Or
Well, I mean, like,
Probably look at the source code, I guess.
it's just weird to me that uh, it's weird to me to hear of a game that people didn't just data mine to heck and back, because that just seems to be always a thing every time I turn around. It's a new article. This game got data mined. We all know what's coming for it now because of all the hooks and stuff.
I mean, if he had lost the codes, he could probably have just said, there are codes to do this, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Look in the game. You'll find them.
Yeah,
I bet people would find it eventually.
Yeah. It's interesting, though.
They,
Good story.
Yeah. That's super neat. I love games, especially like I know there's been a few stories in the past, games that are like even older, new info coming out about it, or different things like being, that finally the developers either reveal something that was previously like a secret, or just nobody bothered to ask about it, and then somebody does, and they're like, oh yeah, that wasn't a thing, or whatever. Like things that were, there was some game where it was like some game that was like, there's some famous there's like some random stuff in it, and the guy's like, oh no, that wasn't random, there's like a thing that decides what happens.
Oh.
And people are like, wait, what? Oh man. Anyway, I think that's all the stuff.
Yeah,
I can see by Bij's hair that the show is now over.
Yes.
It's like a clock.
This is how we tell time around here.
So thanks everybody for watching. Coming up next, we've got Friday Night Paper Fight, where they're going to be on Magic Arena. Going to be playing Gladiator. Should be super fun. Nice. And in fact, I have a thing for this. Then coming up next, or coming up on nothing on Saturday, but then on Sunday, continuing the epic Taiko Drum quest. That is Taiko no Tatsuken. What are you doing now?
We are about to face the villain. We are about to end the game, potentially, as long as Ian can do it, because it's his turn to go into the office.
Oh no. Is it going to be, what if there's one of these situations where he's like, you think this is my real form? And then you have to like go through a whole bunch. Well,
that happened last time.
Turn into an even bigger
I wouldn't
drama.
be surprised if it happened again. We did.
Oh really? You did get
you
got a regatta, and now see my true form?
Yeah, pretty much. The nice thing was, after you got through the first stage of that, when you went back after you died, the game didn't make us have to run through the dialogue again. And we did knock it down to easy because we just wanted to get through the game. But that last boss battle in the first part was BS anyway, so I don't blame him for having a hard time with it. I'm hoping this one will at least have a better song, so if we have to listen to it several times in a row, it won't feel punishing for that reason. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Excited to actually finish it, because it's been the longest game we've ever played, and I kind of want to move on to something else finally.
Yeah, like epic and like rhythm games are not usually associated, but it really has been it's been like 6 months or something that you've been playing the two games.
Almost 4.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, it's been a while.
And then both Bens, Ben of the Wheeler and the Ulmer variety, are going to be playing some more of Pokemon Online TCG on Is This Your Card?
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Monday, I'll be continuing my play it forward of Death Stranding.
Take your time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to take him some time.
Yeah.
I think Bij is up after me, so in terms
take
of
your time.
play it forward. So
Oh, yeah.
I still haven't quite decided what I want to do because the one that I kind of want to do is just will end up taking the next several months.
all right.
So I don't know if I want to do that or not. But anyway, we'll see.
No worries. I'm pretty sure I can faff around in Death Stranding for as long as I need to.
I bet.
It's one of those games where there's like, I'm fairly aggressively ignoring some of the like, hey, we have all these packages that you could deliver over here. Maybe you should deliver these packages over here. Maybe you should deliver these over here. Does that do anything? No, but you know, the plot's that way. But you know, you could do other stuff if you want to.
Yeah.
And then also on Monday is the second episode of our brand new series, Can't Draw Horses Club.
Yeah.
Where Corey and friends are drawing things that are sometimes horses and sometimes not horses.
We do have a logo for it. It just didn't get into the
Well, I
mix
mean,
this
it's
week,
still
so.
kind of
Yeah.
getting there.
They have to draw the logo first.
Last I was on the last episode. It was a lot of fun. We drew circles. I drew circles very impressively.
Nice.
And Corey tried to learn how Photoshop and a tablet work together, and then also drew some impressive circles eventually.
Nice.
And nobody has quite on the Discord. They're playing a guessing game, or they were playing a guessing game as to who drew each horse in the intro.
Yeah.
Here's a spoiler: not everybody in Loading Ready Run drew horses for this.
Some people drew mini horses.
Yes.
And many people who you think have a lot of artistic talent, I don't think contributed.
Yeah.
And many people who you think have no artistic talent definitely contributed.
Yeah, you can tell from some of the horses that got drawn.
So we're not going to tell you who didn't and did participate. Yeah. That's up to you to figure out.
And then on Monday evening, it's probably Dice Friends. We're still working that out.
Yeah.
But there will be something on Monday evening. So thanks everybody. As I said with the YouTuber's life story, we appreciate your support so much, both of the Patreon and of subscribing to this channel and following us and doing all those good things. So here is all the people who subscribed during this stream.
Ah, yes.
What about one more? Is James not doing one more on Monday?
I don't know. It's
largely up to him to put it in the schedule, right?
You can check the schedule over at loadingreadyrotten.com/live to find out all the shows that we didn't talk about.
Oh, Farabender gave 36 subscriptions.
Wow! That's a lot.
Such
It's a huge number.
Excessive subscriptions. Thank you so
So
much.
it's AWell's 44, 60 months. That's like 70 years.
5 years, but...
70 years.
Welcome to the channel, Unarmed Peasant.
Yay!
That's the kind of thing that you want to throw your arms wide. And Lumpy Gravy had that whole year.
The third phase of Lumpy Gravy. That is a fantastic name. Yeah. It has so much color and story to it.
I just assume that by the third phase, you'd have worked all the lumps out by that point.
I like to think that they're in their third year, and it's third phase.
Oh, 3-year-old Gravy.
Yeah.
And apparently that was, it is Pharaohbender's birthday.
Oh!
Oh, cool. Happy birthday.
Wait, I have a...
What? Oh, your birthday is the number of subs you gave.
Yay!
Thank you for that. All right.
No, they said, I'll let you guess how old I turned. Okay. And so I think they turned a person.
I'm going to assume that they're 27 based on the fact that 27 is at the end of their...
Usually people put their birthday at the end, so they were born in 27.
Twitch is going to love all of the particle effects.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And a dancing fall. Like you don't get that kind of combo every day.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure Bijan Heather didn't hear that music that I was playing.
Nope. We just talked over it. You were dancing, and it's like you're having a good time. It's like I don't know what's going on, but
I've seen too many people do improv where they just dance as if they can hear music, and so I never assume there's any noises.
If that music gets DMCA'd, I have a lot of problems with that. Because that is explicitly public domain music of the that is like the American regimental band playing the whatever Sousa March or whatever it is. But it's anything that the military regimental band plays is explicitly released into the public domain.
Oh, okay.
Was it?
Because it's an official government thing.
I
Stars
didn't
and
hear
Stripes
it.
Forever, yes, of course.
Oh, it wasn't. Yeah,
that is what it was. Yeah, that it was.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Well, then we'll find out together if because there's two places it's got to go through.
Right.
We'll know on the Twitch pod immediately if their algorithms hate it, and then I'll find out later when I throw it on YouTube if somebody has decided that they can claim things that aren't theirs, because that happens on YouTube.
All right.
Don't think we don't know. We go after those ones.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We in about an hour is going to be Friday Night Paper Fight. So until then, we will see all y'all later.
Cool.